Dr. Enrique Murillo, who is the co-director of our EDD program, the Doctor of Education program, and the director of the LEAD, which is one of the top organizations focusing on Hispanic educational opportunities in the Inland Empire. Dr. Murillo.
Everybody. I got is it the fortunate or unfortunate position that I guess I'm the person between you and your lunch. Okay, well the lunch is gonna go on. So you guys can be smacking your food while I'm talking. I'm gonna keep it short. I had a bunch of slides and I had all these plans in my mind, but of course, the day you show up, it doesn't happen the way you plan it. But before anything, I want to give much respect to our lead padrino, Dr. Ernie Garcia. He just walked into the room. Now, earlier, when our Dean, Don Machuco, was speaking, he talked about the College of Education, but it was a school of education. So maybe I don't know if you're going to speak today, but you could talk about maybe the evolution. But the years that Dr. Ernie Garcia was in the position we experienced much growth in the school. It wasn't a college yet. It was still the School of Education. And then, anyways, if you have a chance to talk to it, maybe you could tell us about that. But I see it as I'm fortunate to be in the same room as this gentleman. Okay, a couple things. Lead Summit is back. Before I forget, Lead Summit is back. So Wednesday, March 30th. Okay? You don't have to be Latino to show up. It's for everybody. But the thing is, Latinos, we've been so emblematic of the educational crisis. So that's why it's Latino. But it's not a Latino thing. It's like it's everybody. Okay? Chicha Marin is back. He's our honorary chairperson. So we have the comedian Chicha Marin is back. Okay? And a couple things. I'm glad to hear a few people mention FAFSA, right? So for 4 years, I served as the commissioner of financial aid in California. I'd go up to Sacramento, and so one of the things a couple things that I did is when that ended, when I did my 4 years as a commissioner, I helped implement. We started the Cash for College. So many of you have probably heard of the Inland American Cash for College. So that was started by their lead organization, and it was during the years when they were giving pink slips to the counselors. If you remember what year was that? I can't remember the years. But they were getting rid of it's like, it didn't make sense. Why are you getting rid of the counselors? That's when we need them the most. So we implemented the Cash for College, and we had up to 105 workshops in the Inland Empire, and kind of making up for the difference. The new thing that I'm involved in now is very important, is we want to help you get your doctorate. And first of all, this is not the topic I was asked to talk about, so I'm talking about other stuff, okay? But I'm going to get to that, okay? Because it's all related, because I'm talking about critical race theory, okay? So the thing is, for many of us, it's not a theory, it's our lived experience. Critical race theory is the way we live our lives, right? It's the analysis, right? So it's all connected. So for any of you who got your master's and are looking to get your doctorate, we want you to come to Cal State San Bernardino, okay? I was saying the same thing I was saying when I just had my master's, and then all of a sudden I got my doctorate, and it's like, oh, Dr. Murillo, oh, you're so whatever. I was talking the same, whatever, smack I was saying the same thing, but all of a sudden, oh, doctor. Okay, so the Audrey, I know, I was gonna say Audrey, but it's Dr. Baca Lopez. Stand up again so I can see you. Okay, I want you to give her your business card or your email address, and we promise you we're gonna give you 101 reasons why you should come get your doctorate with us, okay? And our goal is that when people think about doctorate in educational leadership, we're the first thing that comes to their mind, okay? So who's the person who does the slides? Is it that correct? Okay, so when I go like this, that means switch. Okay, so, all right. Anyways, this is the tenets, and I'm not the dean, but I think I can speak for the College of Education. This is what's important to us, okay? We believe education is a right, not a privilege, okay? That's why we're all in the game. We're all in this together, right? Because it's a right, not a privilege. Okay, it's an economic imperative. It's been the civil rights issue of our generation, okay? So a lot of times we speak about, the civil rights, okay? But the civil rights now, education, right? That's the imperative. This where we're at now. There's nothing more important. That and, of course, broadband, right? The digital stuff, right? Our kids need internet, right? That's a civil rights issue, right? It's not just whatever. It's a real issue. Okay, anyways, you can read what I have up there, but for the purposes of the broader context, the competitive strength of the United States relies on the positive outcomes of our children, you know? And so our region, we're not gonna improve as a region unless the education is part of it, right? Everybody's gotta get out of their lane, right? In education, we stay in our lane. And it's bad, right? We saw this with the health, right? The whole pandemic. The health is just the other side of the coin of education, right? And so during this whole pandemic, the health people were doing their thing, and then us in education were doing our thing. But we gotta go into other people's lanes. We gotta go into the health and do public education campaigns in the health, right? We got to deal with the business people. It can't just be us here in the room talking to ourselves, right? We need all the CEOs and the whatever O's and all those other people to be in the room because it's together, right? So it's mixing the rooms. Okay, so we need that change. Okay, switch. Okay, so we need to make some big changes here. Okay, so we need to compete in a global economy. Right? Now, that doesn't mean everything needs to be globalized, right? There's a certain Walmart effect that has affected our communities, right? It's not all good, right? Well, I love Walmart. I go into Walmart, do my stuff, but it's had its effect all over the United States, right? So I'm not necessarily saying, hey, let's globalize. But our kids do need to be equipped to compete in a global economy, right? They need to be part of a literate and well-educated labor and consumer base, a pool of linguistic and cultural talent, right? What sense does it make to not allow kids to practice their Spanish in their heritage language, only till when they get to high school, they say, oh, pick a language, right? And then, okay, Spanish is my language. Well, if you never would have gotten rid of the Spanish to begin with, why all of a sudden in high school? It doesn't make sense. Anyway, but our kids need to be poised to participate and shape the U.S. political landscape through voting and civic engagement. Okay, so switch. Okay, so I was asked to talk about critical race theory. I kind of really didn't know what to say. There's a million things to say. Okay, so here it is in a kind of at a glance. Okay. CRT is an academic concept. It's more than 40 years old, okay? Race, it tells you that race is a social construct. It doesn't mean that race is not a real thing because we know the effects of race, all that's a real thing, but it's a social construct, right? In other words, we as humans made it up. It's something we just created. the meaning behind race, the meaning behind having your hair different or your skin color different or those kinds of stuff, right? Why are some people upset? Well, some people view the concepts underlying critical race theory as an effort to persuade white people that they are inherently racist, right? It's not about that. It's not an attack on white people, but that's how it's been spun, right? The state has responded, right? Some of the states have responded. Well, so far 8, maybe there's more, and they're all Republican-led. They've either banned or limited the teaching of critical race theory or similar concepts, right? So that's the way the states respond. Hey, Ted, how's it going? Thank you for, I was gonna mess with you. I won't mess with you today. Theodore, right? I said that it's Theodore. Is that what Ted? Okay, because I was reading the thing, Theodore. Wasn't that one of the chipmunks? Wasn't that one of the chipmunks? The schools respond. Some teacher unions and educators worry that the limits will whitewash American history. Okay, so switch. Okay, so I don't understand because in my lived experience, critical race theory was like, okay, so, I grew up in the south part of East LA, and I start going to, I go to school, mostly university. I didn't get any of this from my high school, right? So then I had a perfect 4.0 in high school, but not one academic counselor ever said, oh, Enrique, right? Maybe you should consider college or university. Not one. I had a 4.0. And not one counselor said, hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? So I got lucky. There was a field trip to Cal State Long Beach. I went to Cal State Long Beach. I ended up going to Cal State Long Beach, right? So I'm there. Thank you. So I'm there. And so what I realized is it's not just critical race theory. It's all of it. When you grow up in the hood, you don't have a language to describe your social conditions, right? You don't have a language of critique. So I had street knowledge and knowledge, first generation born in the U.S. of Mexican and Native American parents. And so you have, my only cognitive map that I had was the one I got from home, right? So that's all I have in my neighborhood. And so you go to the university and we don't have a language of critique. And that's what critical race theory gave us. It gave us a language so that we could start critiquing and making sense of our lives, right? The part that's missing in the debate of our critical race theory is our testimonials, our testimonials, testimonio, right? That our lived experience is a viable form of knowledge. And so, nevertheless, it's an academic tool. It's just like any other analytic tool in the toolbox, right? It's not the boogeyman, it's not the kukui, it's none of that stuff, right? It's the switch. Yet 8 states, right, there they are, have passed laws against it and there's similar bills, right? Go ahead, switch. I'm just gonna go through some of this stuff. A common element is that in these bills is that the public schools should not present the foundation of this country in a negative light. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm Native American. I got problems with this history of this country, right? We got problems. We got real estate problems, right? The land we on is native land, right? Right? We should have started the day, it's not a critique, and maybe we did it. You start with the land acknowledgement. So the land we're on, right? Those kinds of things, because you acknowledge, right? You acknowledge everything. Let's switch. Let's just switch again. Here's what it comes down to, and I won't say much after this. We have to understand the origins of race in the United States, right? And there's no way to pretend it's not. And I'm sorry for anybody who thinks so, right? The foundations of this country the racial foundations of this country are based on two things, right? Taking the land, stealing the land from the indigenous people, destroying the indigenous peoples, right? And then all of a sudden you don't have enough bodies to do the work, so what do? You import Africans to do the work, right? That's what race, that's the history of race in the United States. I mean, there's no way around it. That's what it is. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, anybody. You know, so the images, characterizations, components, and classifications of race rationalize the conditions of genocide and enslavement. So it's a way to rationalize, right? So critical race theory, if you look at it, it basically says that race is connected to the social and economic conditions, right? So the economy was, you know, back in the day, during this time, how do you think you built wealth? Land, right? Wealth is built in the land. So if you own land, you were wealthy, you were rich, right? Everybody wanted a piece of land. And then, of course, you got land, you got extra land. You have land more than what you need to live off, right? Well, you have extra land, you can start planting crops and doing stuff, right? And all that stuff. So let's switch again. Keep going. Did I go too far? Hold on. I don't know if okay, go again. Again. Okay, so that's good right there. Here's what critical race theory does in the academy. Okay, so I've been very fortunate. I've been in higher education for quite a while. There's three ways that we look at race. We look at it, right, and it's all the way it's laid out. There's biological theories, right? All the physical variations. There's what they call the psychocultural approach. That's the most common. And that's more like a person to person, the way we treat people on an individual level, right? We talk about ethnocentrism, bias, how we treat people, okay? The third level, the level that we try to aspire to in our teaching, right, in educational leadership, is the third level, the socioeconomic approach, right? You know, when someone says, oh, no, I'm not racist, what they mean is I, as an individual, do not intentionally treat you in a racist or whatever on an like individual, right? But what critical race theory does for us, it says racism can exist without racist, right? Racism can exist without racist. In other words, it's the system. It's the larger structure, right? That's where the critique has to lie, right? That's where the critique for us has to lie. Switch again. And so there you can see is, so, you know, we start off with the individual, and this is what we teach in the academy, right? So we start off with the individual, then we get to the institutional. I don't know what happened there. It looks weird. Okay, so the first one is individual, the second one is institutional, the next is societal, okay? The last one is civilizational. I mean, if you want to go deep into this, we're talking about Western civilization basically claims to be the best of everything, of all time, of all history, of all humanity, of all whatever, right? But many of us who come from a cultural inheritance that's outside Western culture, well, we disagree because our ancestors contributed to humanity just as much, and if not more, right? The native peoples, right? Think of all the foods we eat. Think about the concept of democracy, right? A lot of people don't know this, but at the founding Congress, the quote founding fathers of the United States, they all got schooled by the native peoples. The native peoples are the ones who told them, yeah, do it this way, do it that, you know. They gave advice on how to create a democratic culture. Let's switch again. Okay, but it's not just critical race. I don't know where we're at. It don't matter. Enjoy your lunch. No, I was kidding. My point here is that in the academy we have the big three. It's kind of our holy trinity: race, class, and gender. So we don't analyze race by itself, right? Because you cannot detangle the effects of race from anything else. Maybe we think we can. Sometimes we disaggregate data by ethnicity, by this and that. But race, class, and gender, they collapse into one simultaneous theoretical moment, right? So those three, they collapse into one single moment. So you got to always think about the intersectionality, the way all three function like that. Okay? The COVID is a perfect example. We can analyze COVID forever through critical race theory because it just tells you everything, right? Anyways, let me jump up here. Keep going. Let me see where I'm at. Mas. I don't need to talk about COVID, but you all understand, right? The pandemic, the inequities were already there. It just kind of like put a spotlight or whatever, magnified it, right? We all know that. We all lived it. We don't need, you can keep going. You can keep going. All right, so, CRT, it basically, it's a dog whistle. You can go to the next one. It's a dog whistle. It's like saying, okay, all you kind of, and not everyone. The thing is hard because you can't just say it's racist, right? It's not just racist. There's a lot of gullible people who believe what they hear, right? And those people, they need to be schooled. They need to be like given orientations, right? If I could tell you how many times I'm in a conversation with family and friends and I hear someone say something and I just, oh God, I don't know, should I say something? Should I not say it? Because you don't know, you just want to have a good time, right, on a Sunday evening. But sometimes you got to sit your family down, sit your friends down and give them a lesson. Look, here it is. You got to debrief them, right? This is what's going on, right? There's nobody teaching critical race theory. That we do that in higher education because some of this stuff is heavy duty, convoluted, esoteric, deep level. There's a lot of things packed. It's very dense. It's theoretically dense. So we don't teach that in the K-12 schools. But there's this belief system that, by the way, how's lunch? I'm kind of hungry myself. So they're not doing that. So anyways, so they're attacking ethnic studies, right? They're attacking civics education. They're just attacking stuff, right? We're kind of in a bubble here in California, right? And I know I'm speaking to the choir or whatever metaphor. We're in a bubble, right? It's different here, but in the other parts of the United States, it's some serious opposition, and people are seriously like, oh no. So they want to ban. What it is honestly, what's being attacked is an honest and truthful way to approach American history. That's what it is. They don't want to have an honest conversation, the courageous conversation about American history. So that's really what it is. Let's keep going. I'm going to end on this, a couple slides. There's a couple slides that say, why do we need CRT? Does that say? Okay. Actually, go to the slide before that. Can you do that? I kind of like this cartoon. Can you go to the slide before? Before? B4. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, anyways, I like this, right? Critical erase theory. If they can't teach it, it never happened, right? So we're trying to erase the history of everything. Okay, you can go back now. Thank you. Why do we need CRT? All right, I'm just going to go through this list and then call it a day. We need to empower voices that have been marginalized. We need to embrace the lived experiences of people of color through research, storytelling, counter-storytelling, to examine race and racism in society placed in historical, social, and political context. Next. Why is it relevant? Because the predominant curriculum still centers on the white master narratives. It still does. We've been at this for a lot of years, but the curriculum still does. And first of all, if it still is our curriculum, right? I mean, we've been when we say public schools, that public is kind of questionable, because what remains public, right? Do we even own the curriculum anymore? Who owns the curriculum? Houghton Mifflin, I don't know, whoever, all these private companies, right? So we don't even own the curriculum anymore. We don't own the cafeteria. Even on our campus, right? You go eat, it's a private business. You go to the bookstore, it's a private business. You do this, whatever, it's all privatized, right? It's all privatized. So the public sphere, we know since the Reagan 80s, has shrunk. I mean, where do we go to get away? We go to the mall, right? When I grew up, we used to go to the park, right? If you're lucky, once a year you get to go to the beach, because we're here on the West Coast, right? We go to the beach when you're a kid. But now the kids, everybody grows up, we go to the mall. The mall is it's a business, right? But they kind of replaced the public sphere, right? And because the public sphere has shrunk so much, there's very few opportunities to meet people that are different than yourself, right? So I'm not rubbing elbows with wealthy people, right? There's very few interaction between black and brown, the white people, the this and that, and Redlands. What part of Redlands? The this and that. Are you north of the freeway or south of the freeway? The way it's all segregated is all set up. Long story short, the curriculum is still around the white master narratives. Instruction still takes, despite all our best efforts, we still have much of a deficit approach, right? To everything, to the students. School discipline policies still disproportionately impact students of color, often compromising their educational outcomes, And it's difficult. I used to volunteer in the prisons. I would go in the prisons and I would help do sweat lodge ceremonies. We'd go in there with our Native American program. And so many people, they didn't need to be there. They were in the car with their friends, and their friends were doing dirty. But they were just in the car, And so you get caught up in the neighborhood, and all these things, you get caught up. So it's still the case. Let's keep going. I'm almost done. School funding inequities persist. I'm giving you like a to-do. This is a to-do list for you all, right? You guys are the leaders. It's like a to-do list, right? CRT provides a relevant research-based framework through which education leaders and policymakers can think about the social construct of race and the impact of racism on students of color, okay? It provides educators the tools they need to transform current practices in teaching and learning and to examine the attitudes and biases, implicit or explicit, that they bring to their classrooms. So there's a whole list there, and I'll stop there. Enjoy your lunch. Don't believe all this whatever that you hearing. Okay. The dean said if anybody has questions for me, I can try to answer some questions about anything. Okay? Wait, hold on, I can't hear anything you say.
So I don't know if it's the way to necessarily just take a relaxed approach to it. Even though in the light of this, we just recently passed our ethics studies bill, so with Mr. Medina, but that is still an element in the room.
So what these candidates do is they say, okay, let me pick a few issues that are going to make me stand out against my opponent, right? And they just kind of pick, what's on the playlist, right? It's like, like you just open up a book, almost like a football team, have the playlist. So I'm going to open up the football team and I'm going to pick, okay, I'm going to pick blacks are criminals. I'm going to pick Mexican illegals, and I'm going to pick critical race theory. It's just like a playbook, and they just follow the playbook. I mean, that's what the Heritage Foundation kind of provides. Here it is. And so, but, of course, there's many Californias. So your point is, well, it's not just, because in Orange County, it's a different reality than, Riverside County has pockets. It's definitely a wedge issue. And so I generalize, but yeah, you're right. It could happen. It could happen here in San Bernardino. So yes.
Just a quick question, because I know everybody wants to get to their lunch. But I just want to say thank you. My name is Megan Miller-Putis, and I work for Desert Sands Unified School District. I'm also in the doctorate program, and so grateful to be here today. I just wanted to ask, how do I, as a teacher, as a special education teacher, ensure that my school district is participating in these types of conversations? Because we don't have representation here today, and I would have loved to have seen some of my own leadership here, because we are teaching critical race theory in our schools, and are they having the discussions necessary that we need to make sure that it's a successful program?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say, the way we teach critical race theory in higher education is different than what's going on in K-12 schools, so that's like an issue. You got to step in and get involved. That's what it is, right? If you see something that's happening, you basically got to make a decision. Decisions that how much do I care about it, and how involved am I going to get, right? When a lot of people don't know this, but back in the what year was it? I forget all the stuff, but remember proposition, the three big propositions, right, that we had here, 168, 209, all that stuff. Okay, so when I was a school teacher, they basically said, with Prop 68 is we had to snitch, we had to become INS agents, right? The legislation, you guys remember this, no? Right? So they basically said, you have to tell us what families are, quote, illegal, right? Undocumented, unauthorized. And so a few of us basically said that, hell no, right? I became one of the litigants that sued the state of California, and we beat, and we kept it from going on when I was a teacher at that time. But I get death threats to this day, right? Because if you go talk to our campus police, and they have a whole file of all the death threats for all the stuff involved in it, so you have to decide for yourself, how important is it? And some of these issues, you have to put your life on the line. If it's that important to you, you basically say, outside of my family and the things I care about on the personal level, almost everything I do has to do with struggle. To the point where it's hard to keep relationships, it's hard to please everybody in your family, because that's it, struggle, equity, right? It's the Jedi way, right? We talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but the big one that's left out is justice, right? So if you see right, because education, and Paulo Freire, taught us well, and I was very fortunate to serve as Paulo Freire's translator for a number of years, okay? So Paulo Freire, here's what Paulo Freire told us. Education either oppresses you or liberates you. There's nothing else. There's nothing in between, right? So you have to decide if education is your vocation, and it's a vocation for us. It's not a job. If you're in education, it's because it's our vocation. And so we have to take up the mantle in that same way, right? The way a priest or a nun would take the vocation, the way a whatever, right? If that's your vocation, then we want to be part of people's liberation, right? We want to practice education as a practice of freedom, right? To use Bell Hooks' term, education is a practice of freedom, right? And so you just have to make a decision, but you can't do it by yourself. You need people to help you because they'll figure out a way to get you fired, right? They drove me out. That's how I ended up getting my doctorate, because the LA Unified made it so hard for me. I was teaching 3rd grade, and I was involved in all that stuff. They made it impossible. So, I'm going to go get my doctorate. So, yeah.
Just to follow up, both county offices have really invested in staff to promote equity at high levels of administration, so you can reach out to county offices and get that.
County offices. There you go. If you can't, see, there you go. You hear it right here. That's the metal right there. That's the metal. That's one of the shot callers, right? We call them the shot callers, right? Right, so he's one of the shot callers. So what that means is that if at the district level it's not happening, you go to the next level, right? And if it doesn't happen there, is Tony Thurman going to be here in person? He's going to be here, okay, but if not, we would corner him too. Okay, we got to hit the state senators too. A state senator, it will catch the attention, right? There's things that we can't do, but you get a state senator say it, and then all of a sudden, somebody else, they said somebody was pointing over here. Anything else? Well, the lunch really looks good, but I guess I'm done. Adios.